now the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Welcome to Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. What's this show all about? Well, it's all in the title. He enjoys interviewing people about issues that he finds interesting and which cause him to sit back and think. Cryptocurrency, true crime, natural law, the occult. No topic is off limits here. He has always enjoyed when people give their points of view or thoughts on different topics that they have researched, and what makes it all great is that it's their unique take on what is being discussed. For that reason alone, it makes it interesting to him. So take that walk down to his crypt. Make yourself comfortable, and just maybe he will be discussing a topic that you have been thinking about. Here's your host, Crypt Rick.
Welcome, everybody. Holy smokes, it's the start to another week, another Monday, and you did take the time to walk down to the Crypt for another show. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's having the start to a great week. I know here where I live, it is snowing, and I'm telling you, I was like a vampire hunter out there this morning, like holding the sign of the cross up, like going back. Like I just not digging snow, guys. But other than that, it's been pretty mild for the last while. I can't believe that we're just starting to get snow now. And who knows if it's going to stay or not. But nonetheless, winter is definitely breathing down. And so it's probably only more white snow and shoveling driveways in my near future. So it was just crazy. I'm not a fan of winter. I know people give me crap all the time and say, you've lived in Canada your whole life, you must be used to it. Yeah, I live here. It doesn't mean I got to like it. Not a fan of it. Never was. Not a big fan of the cold thing, and my condition definitely does not like it as well. So I just don't like it, guys. But I do what I can, try to stay warm, and the weather has been incredible for this time of year. So I can't really complain. But it's just that feeling you get up when you open the curtains and you see snow, and you're just like, oh, it's just that feeling, guys. So, anyways, that's my little update about the weather situation. We got snow, and it's still coming. So who knows where it's going to end. And don't forget, guys, before we get this show cooking, I always let you guys know that please remember it is listener-supported here at Revolution Radio, which means that it's your guys' generosity that keeps all of us hosts doing our shows here every day of the week for you guys, and we would truly not be here without your generosity. And I will say that till forever, as long as I'm here, because it's that important to me. And freedom of speech is on the ropes. I say that every week. We're losing our freedom to speak about what we want to. They are making it very difficult on other platforms and really censoring people. I talk to people all the time that are losing videos, they're losing channels, and it's just crazy. And, you know, this is the time. If not now, when? I don't know. Like, I don't know what people are waiting for. If you're not going to fight for freedom now and what they're trying to do to silence people and what we've seen over the last few years, then I don't know what you're waiting for, to be honest. I really don't. And I understand people are busy. Not everybody can do shows. I get that. But you can contribute. There's different ways to do it, and it doesn't have to maybe be through a podcast. You can do so many things. There's music, there's art, there's dance, there's doing this. There's so many things that you guys can do, and one way to do that is to help in the fight is to donate if you can. Even a little donation, it goes a long way. It adds up, and it keeps us all here doing our shows for you guys, and you are helping fight for freedom. And I don't want to lose it. I don't want to see it get worse than it is. I want to try to push back and start going in the right direction and not losing more, because we keep backing up inch by inch, and this is how we end up where we are. So please, guys, donate if you can. Lots of ways. Just go to the revolution.radio, up to the donation section, the little tab there, and there's so many ways you can donate. There is direct pay. There's cryptocurrency, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum. There is, I always forget this. And, well, snail mail, of course. And then there is Patreon, if you want to do that, a monthly donation, and that. It all goes towards keeping this station up and running, and I'm so proud to be here. There's so many incredible hosts. I've met so many incredible people. And welcome everybody in the chat. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that you take any time out of your day to be here and listen every week, because, you know, your time is valuable, so I can't thank you enough. So thank you, guys. And thank you for the people who are donating and who will donate. So important right now. So important. It is one way to get involved in this fight for freedom. And that's what we are here doing and talking about all the time, constantly, as you guys know. So with that out of the way, let me just go ahead here. This is actually going to be a great show. I'm not done. You guys know I talk about so many different topics on here, and I try to keep you guys guessing in a way. I never let people know what my subject's going to be, who my guests are going to be. I just want to keep you guys guessing on your toes, right? Got to keep you on your toes, guys. And so this is going to be I've had this guest on before, and this is going to be, as you can tell if you've ever listened to my intro, I love talking about true crime. True crime is something I've been very interested in since I can remember, and along with a lot of other topics. I just seem to really dive into so many things, and there's a few cases that are true crime that I've honed in on and I've taken an interest in. There's so many out there now that are going on, and so much craziness, but there's some that are really more popular than others, and have people debating and guessing and writing books and big topics about it. So this is what this show is going to be about. It's going to be a true crime one. So I'm looking forward to this. I have a great guest on. Had him on before. I've done a video interview with him a couple times on my YouTube channel, and he's on my Rumble channel. And we get into a lot. We've got into Zodiac, which I've taken a big interest in, as you guys probably know if you've been keeping track. The Cooper case, which is one that just, it's a great time to talk about it now. And that's one that's really, I've gotten in some great discussions about. And another one that I've really been, for some reason, going back to all the time is the Son of Sam one. And I think it's because I stumbled upon it on Netflix again. They have that series. And I was just doing some work on my computer, and I threw it on, listening in the background. And it dragged me in again. I just think there's so much more going on with these cases, at least that one. And so my guest, Ross from Planet X Filmworks. Welcome, Ross. I'm so glad to have you here to talk about some cases. And we got to do a quick movie review too, because Ross, I tell you, I saw the new Indiana Jones last night. It was horrible. Horrible, yeah, dude. So I want to get your thoughts on it. Maybe I'm crazy, but it was bad. I was
I don't think you're crazy. I actually haven't seen it yet, but I definitely am looking to get a roast of that on the channel. If you guys are familiar with my channel, PXF, Planet X, it's youtube.com/Planet X Film. We do.
I'll put a link.
In addition to the true crime, as Rick knows, we do movie reviews on the channel. And if something is just so horrible that we can't take it anymore, the rule is it generally turns into a roast. So I see that one as being a roast. I mean, I'm sure you're a fan of the originals. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been watching that, right? Yeah. So it's always difficult when that happens, when one of those kind of legendary franchises kind of turns out the way a lot of them have turned out lately.
Exactly.
We've all seen how that's gone.
Oh yeah, it's just I was all excited because I've been waiting for it on Disney to it finally become available. Yeah. And I'm just putting your link in here, guys. So if you guys want to check out Ross's YouTube channel, guys, please check it out. I'm going to go. I got so many windows going here, Ross. It's flying everywhere. Hold on here.
Yeah, no problem, brother. I'm going to go ahead and invite my my DB Cooper expert, Nikki B from the Vortex.
All right, can you add him, or because I might have to add him? I don't know if you can.
I just sent him an invite, and I'm not 100% sure what that means. Maybe you have to add him on your end.
Okay, yeah, let me just, I got him. Yeah, I got him. All right, let me just accept. Just give me 1 sec, Nick, if you're listening. And I got a few things going on the go here. I just want to do things in order, or I'm going to get all lost here. So let me just put the link.
Fine, bro. You're fine. So I haven't seen the Dial of Destiny, but I have my own title that I call that. We'll just say it's another D word that is not dial, but starts with the same similar syllables. But yeah, I mean, if we need to kill time before we get Nikki on, if you want to do Zodiac or any of my cold cases or anything else, you're welcome to take it where you want to take it, my man. It's your show.
Perfect. Yeah, and just let everybody know a little bit about Nikki. I'll also get Nikki to introduce themselves, of course, but I don't think I've had the chance to speak with him, so I am looking forward to having him on for the first time and really dive into these cases. So yeah.
Nikki's amazing, actually. So Nikki and I met up and before he came on my series, The Cooper Chronicles, and it was funny because one that, I kind of have a passing interest in, Rick, so I heard your weather rant there, Rick, and then as you know, I'm from just a little bit down south from your neck of the woods there in Boston, where I originally hail from, and that was usually me giving the people I'm a born and bred New Englander rant, but I still hate the cold weather, and they always hit you back with the old, well, you're from out there, haven't you adjusted to it yet? And it's like, no, it's terrible. How do you adjust to negative 20 degrees? There we go. I think we got our boy Nikki B.
Hello, gentlemen.
Oh, wow, you did, Adam. Cool. Hello.
Yeah. Welcome, sir.
Sorry, I'm a little late there. I had a couple of technical difficulties, but looks like I found my way on here with you fellas.
No, that's awesome. Welcome.
It's just audio, Nikki. If it helps your feed, just to cut the video.
Perfect.
How's my audio? Is it okay?
Great.
You're good.
All right, right on.
It is great.
You might not need the video feed, but it's up to you, bud. So yeah, we were just getting warmed up, Nikki. But everybody, my boy Nicky B from the Vortex, this guy knows his stuff. When we're talking the DB Cooper case, that is. So anyway, what I was getting to real quick there, Rick, was the Isabella Garter Stewart Boston heist. Have you seen that one there on Netflix? It's the biggest heist in U.S. history.
Yes, that's crazy.
So, Nikki, I was impressed with how much Nikki knew about that one. We met up to talk about Cooper. We ended up talking about that for about 45 minutes straight. And it was just interesting because, as you know, I'm a New Englander. But I suppose we'll get into some Cooper and whatever else you boys want to get into.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like as I was saying at the beginning, I'm fascinated by certain cases. And as I was just saying, as you guys just heard, Son of Sam is one that I've recently got into again. That's one I keep going back to. Yeah. I think there's so much more to that case. And from the Netflix special I was watching, they were going on that whole satanic cult angle. And I just really think there's something to that. And it's a very interesting case. But all the cases that we're going to be talking about, and I was saying to you, Ross, when we were messaging before the show, I said, we can get into the Cooper, we can get into Zodiac, whatever you guys want to get into, and definitely even the Crowley case. I mean, that's one that we've all been talking about for 8 years now, and I still think that's an injustice going on there. So, but, whatever case you guys want to start on, I'm game with. Just please, I know there's some people listening right now because I have friends listening. They don't know about these cases like you guys do. And so we got to start at the beginning and kind of break the case down. And you guys can kind of chime in and stuff, and I'll have questions too. So whatever case you guys want to start with, and then just start at the beginning the best you can. So for people listening that don't know these cases as well as we do, know what we're talking about.
The first thing you want to do, Rick, with the Son of Sam is you want to go get that The Ultimate Evil by Maury Terry, because there's a lot of conjecture now of, it's kind of in the similar situation that Robert Graysmith is in with Zodiac, which people start to begin to question with how much of this is legitimate fact and then how much of it is actually, some guy, some author selling a book, filling in the blanks, kind of fluffing fudging the facts. But I'm sure Nikki will have some good recommendations for Cooper books. Let's have Nikki introduce himself to your audience.
Absolutely, Nikki. Let's do
Cooper,
it.
Since he's here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name's Nicky Broughton. I'm a DB Cooper investigator, researcher, going on a little over 7 years now. I kind of have an interesting connection into the case. I actually had a personal relationship with one of the more famous suspects, Robert Wesley Rackstraw. I actually knew him about 6 months before the Big History Channel documentary came out. I think this was back in 2016. If I'm not mistaken, all these years are kind of getting jumbled together now, so I might be off. I might be off on a year on a couple things, but But yeah, that was kind of a big thing on as far as the DB Cooper case goes. It was a 2-part special that aired on History. Had a lot of promotion, a lot of publicity. It just caught my eye when I was watching an episode. I think American Pickers or Pawn Stars, one of those two. It was a big History Channel guy back then with those shows. And,
yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yes, still am. And I remember seeing that big promotion for it. And, I've kind of had an interest since I was a kid from seeing the old Unsolved Mysteries
right.
special on DB Cooper. They covered a lot of cases, but the DB Cooper one really kind of stuck with me.
That's cool. And can you maybe, you guys break down? So some people may not even know the DB Cooper case. I mean, I know a few of the people that are listening definitely don't know much about it. They may know a very surface,
like the name, or maybe
the name, yeah,
or
so
something.
Maybe dive in.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe you could dive in, Nick, and just is it okay if I call you Nick, or do you want Nicky? Nick is good.
Nick,
okay.
Nick, whatever's easier for you. I don't.
All right,
mind.
perfect.
You'll call him Mr. Broughton.
Mr. Broughton.
This is a serious academic shit. No, anyway, let me summarize it, because that'll probably be my only use, Nick, because once we get into titanium alimony particles and actual intelligent conversation, you're going to be taking over. So, I believe it was at 71, Nikki B, Thanksgiving Eve, we have a swarthy Caucasian male wearing some sunglasses. Now, he's going to take a flight called Flight 305, right? And during this flight, Rick, this guy is so smooth that most of the people on board did actually not know that he had apparently made this bomb threat. He passed a note to one of the stews that he had a bomb. So his ransom was $200K. And what makes this case so interesting, in my opinion, is you basically have that one night of 305. This guy only exists from when he travels to the airport, he pays cash, he's seen boarding. And then Nikki will get into specifics, but even the way this guy slips away, he lowers the stairs in flight, which is something the pilots didn't even know was possible. And he basically, he ransoms this cash money. But very uncharacteristic of a hijacker. He's extremely polite to the staff. He just kind of chills in the back and smokes butts and drinks bourbon. It's almost like a James Bondian sort of, character. It almost doesn't even sound like a realistic story once you break down the details. It's like, wait, this guy did what? Totally kept his cool, as opposed to, a lot of the copycats. And then, as Nikki said, History Channel and a lot of other people have covered Richard McCoy. Well, that guy was a blubbering, sweaty mess. So it's kind of interesting that people would even have him, because he kind of did the next kind of semi-famous one after this, Flight 305. So they're like, oh, that guy's obviously DB Cooper. It just doesn't seem to be. But anyway, so he skyjacks into the night. It's like a semi-rainy, not the best night, not freezing cold, but not the best night for a nighttime commercial, hijacking jump midair, which is not what most people would expect. And then was it 79 or 80, Nikki, that this almost $6,000 is found on Tina Bar, and that's basically the only trace of DB Cooper. And then the news wires pick up the name DB Cooper. They misreport it. The name he gives it at the gate is actually Dan Cooper, is what's written on his ticket. So essentially disappears into thin air, and then this money is found on Tina Bar, and there's these crazy theories of did the money wash up in the water, or how did it get there? That's really the only evidence ever found, although he had all the bank bags tied to him, an attaché case, as well as a briefcase, which he had the possible fake, possible real bomb in. Essentially, he had all these other things with him. Now, he did leave his tie on the flight before he jumped, which Nikki will cover, and that's gotten scanned high resolution by the scientist Tom Kay, which comes up with metal particles. Yeah. So and he smoked butts, which he did leave. He smoked with the stew, but the FBI did destroy those. So anyway, that's
crazy.
The kind of summary for your audience. But it sounds. I think the reason why this one doesn't get picked up big like Zodiac is because you kind of hear it. It sounds like, oh, it doesn't really sound like a big deal, but once Nikki kind of gets into these specifics that they deep dive in the Vortex, every little, bit of evidence gets overly deconstructed. You know,
exactly.
what I mean? It's amazing. So
yeah,
it's actually an incredible case.
It's fascinating. Yeah, and just before Nikki gets it, breaks this all down, which I'm really looking forward to. I know what you're saying, Ross. Like, this is why the case always fascinated me. Was the guy's, he was so cool, calm. You know, he was collected and he knew things. And so once you start going below the surface a little bit, you're like, wow, this guy really had it together. Or he was the luckiest guy in the world. I don't know. But I'm saying it seems that this guy really knew what he was doing and he was so calm. And then the money that they found washed up on shore, that one always got me too. Like, that's strange to me. Like, why is it there? Why is that all they found? I mean, I'm sure Nikki can get into all that, but that's really interesting. And so go ahead, Nikki. Let's dig into this.
Real quick, Nikki. Real quick, bud. He requests Mexico, right, Nikki? But then he basically jumps almost right away, like within a couple hours. So it's always interesting. You think he's gonna like, oh, he's taking the money down to Mexico, and it's not even close to that, you know. So
yeah, he did say Mexico, but he ended up still jumping in the Pacific Northwest. He pretty much kind of started his day. He kind of started and ended his day kind of around the same kind of general area, which is, you know, kind of that Washington Oregon border right there by PDX. And you know, you guys kind of touched on this. You know, what's so interesting in this case is, you know, we have the whole mystery of DB Cooper, and then we have the whole mystery of Tina Barr and how that ransom money ended up there. So it's unique to pretty much any other you know, kind of true crime case I've seen that has such a compelling mystery within the mystery.
Correct.
Because, you know, where the money was found on Tina Barr, it absolutely defies any kind of sense. I mean, you know, we've had Cooper sleuths endlessly, you know, tirelessly trying to figure out a way to get the money there that, you know, kind of makes sense. And none of it really does, whether it doesn't make sense because of the science and the analysis, you know, the analysis of the money and kind of things we know about the geography and how the river flows and what it would take for it to naturally arrive at Tina Barr. Also the problem that, you know, by all accounts, Cooper didn't jump, you know, over the, you know, by the Columbia River. He jumped a little bit before then. Now it's believed he jumped a little bit more south than the FBI drop zone, which was around the Ariel Amboy, Ariel Amboy, Hyson, La Center kind of area. Now we believe that there's a little bit of conflation on when he actually got on the stairs and when he actually jumped. There might have been a little compilation between what the crew saw on the cabin rate of climb indicator and the sensation they actually felt. But they did search the FBI drop zone extensively. Nothing was ever found there. You know, even if you put Cooper jumping over the Columbia, it still doesn't, you know, from the flight path, it still doesn't put him anywhere near Tina Barr. Tina Barr is totally out of the way. You know, it's totally out of the way, you know, of Vancouver, of the city. It's basically almost on an island. It's kind of one road to get in, one way to, or a peninsula is better description. One road to kind of get in and one way to kind of get out. So there is no really natural way that anyone's kind of come up with, you know, to put the money there. Another prominent researcher, Eric Eulis, just tried to move the flight path to kind of explain the money. That doesn't
the Western flight path. So just real quick, Eric Eulis' theory is that Cooper landed essentially at Tina Barr or near Tina Barr, Rick, and then he kind of, you know, buried the money there. So that's kind of his explanation, but Nikki and the rest of the Vortex are kind of opposed to that, based on what I've seen.
Yeah, that'd be going against the U.S. Air Force and you know, the SAGE
NORAD
and SAGE system we had, you know, that cost more than the Manhattan Project, you know, and it was, you know, it was trusted to protect our airspace from Soviet bomber, you know, it was the height of the, you know, height of the Cold War, you know what I'm saying? So, you know,
very sensitive.
Yeah, you know, so kind of any way you look at it, you know, how that money got there is a real mystery, you know, and then you can go with the, you know, he he went there later and buried it there for someone to find. But
that's what I thought.
that kind of defies logic to many people, because he got away with it. What good is that him going to do? He can.
Why risk going back? You get caught doing that.
Come up more for potential risk. Why you throwing away this why you just throwing away this money that you risked your life for? So it kind of defies some of like the logic you would think.
Right.
So you have that problem with that theory. So whatever you kind of come up with, it's like, man, nothing.
Nothing fits.
Nothing.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like weird.
Yeah.
It's just like if he did die and the money washed up, then where's everything else?
Right. Well, like you were saying, Rick, you would expect to find clothing or his attaché case or one of the money bags, like Nicky was saying, something. But then, go into a little bit more, Nicky, the way that money's found on Tina Bar is it's kind of buried near the surface. A kid finds it making a fire with his family, just quite literally just scratching the surface.
Damn,
and then there's
crazy.
more questions about the shards and the how it was rubber banded and things of that nature. And good.
Yeah, no, go ahead. And the most recent thing for some of your listeners that was just presented at CooperCon this year. CooperCon's an annual conference we have every year, usually the weekend before the skyjacking. We've had it in Vancouver. This year we had it in Seattle at the Museum of Flight. The previous 4 years we've had it at Kiggins Theater in Vancouver, Washington, which is where around DB Cooper was thought to have jumped.
Yeah, near Tina Bar, yep.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to that some year. That'd be great.
It's awesome, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good time, man. And if you ever want to make it out to one, you won't regret it. But we have a kind of a scientist, Tom Kay. He has electron microscopes and he does paleontology and all kinds of. He's kind of our scientist, and he's done all of the scientific work and analysis on the money, the tie, all that kind of stuff. And he recently got a new microscope that's a lot. He was working with like a 1980s or like early 1990s scope, and he got something now in the 2000s, which it's got a
difference.
Yeah, he can see a lot better now. And he got a bill cluster. So this was Brian Ingram, the kid that found the money. He's kind of in our community as well. And he's been very cool about sharing his information, everything from what he remembers of finding money. But he also ended up through a lawsuit getting half of the bills that he found. Half went to the insurance company Global Indemnity, who insured Northwest Airlines,
right.
And then half went to Brian Ingram, who found the money. It was some years after, but Brian ended up getting half of the bills.
How much did they find again? What was the total?
5,800.
About 5,800 when you consider.
Wow, that's not much. Yeah.
Almost $6,000.
Yeah, about $6,000. And when he got the money back, he auctioned some of them off. But
I was just going to say that he should be auctioning some of those off.
No, he did, but he still has a collection to himself, and he's got like some. He just has like some clusters as well, which are just like segments, little portions of segments. And he had one that was like I believe four pieces, 4 bills stuck together in a cluster. And what Tom did is he took that and he put that right inside his electron microscope, and he looked in between the bills, right?
Okay. Cool.
And to see what he would find in there, and it was amazingly clean. Like there wasn't you couldn't find one speck of any sand granule, of any sediment, of any soot, or anything like that. It was amazingly clean, he said. And going by that would indicate that one of the kind of theories for how the money might have gotten to Tina Bar, in a previous test Tom did, he found diatoms on the money. Diatoms are these little kind of glass organisms that live in freshwater environments. So the Columbia River has these diatoms, and each body of water has specific diatoms based on the conditions that live there. So they only found one species of diatoms. It's called Astronella formosa. and this only blooms in the Columbia River during the summer, during mainly the months of May and June.
That's accurate.
Is when it blooms. Now you can find. I mean, you can find it. You can find maybe a few in there in the wintertime, but the amount on the Bill Tom check, there was over 2,000 diatoms found on it. So this strongly indicates that money was exposed to Columbia River water in May or June when the Astronella was in the peak boom time.
Right.
So there happened
more confusion now.
No, yeah, rest, because Cooper jumps in November, so you see what Nicky's getting at, Rick. Yeah.
But that actually gives us a constraint, right? So we know the money couldn't have landed in the water in the Columbia River in November.
Correct.
Right? Or else we'd be seeing species from the wintertime on the bills,
right.
which we see none.
Essentially seasonal.
What's interesting is, and what got a lot of people down this kind of rabbit hole, or this kind of theory, was that after the hijacking, there was 2 big floods in 1972 and 1974. In both of these floods, the water rose to the spot where the money was found on Tina Bar, which is on the Columbia River bank. 2 times it rose to that level where the money was found, and that was in 72 and 74. Just so happens, and both of them in June, when the diatoms would have been, in their bloom. So everyone's thinking, oh, right, okay, great. This, this kind of explains it, right? The diatoms are only from the summertime. We got two big floods in 72, 74. That probably carried the money to Tina Bar, right?
Okay. Yep.
That kind of makes a lot of sense. But now Tom looks in between this bill cluster, and in between the bills, it's perfectly clean. So if this money was exposed to floodwater, you would be seeing all sorts of kind of soot, sediment,
absolutely
crap in between bills. He actually did an experiment where he took Tina Bar sand. He put that in a bucket. He took some money, put it bundled up, put it in that sand. Then took a bunch of water, dunked it in the bucket after it was submerged in the sand, and then he went and dug up that bundle. He then took that bundle, put it under his electron microscope, and guess what he saw in between those bills? And on top and everywhere.
The sand.
All of that stuff from the dirty flood water.
Yep.
Okay, so that makes it even more weird.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, so it's quite the conundrum, the mystery within the mystery, and that's kind of what makes this case is kind of so different.
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning. Like, the more you dig into it, it starts to really, you just see these layers. And what I wanted to ask, because I remember I was talking to my friend, and we were talking about how he left his tie behind in his cigarette butts and all of that. They must have checked for DNA, right? Did they find anything that can point to who this was by the cigarette butts?
So yeah, this is where
Here we go.
Here we go.
It's interesting. So there's a thing called the Cooper curse. It's right up there with the Billy Goat curse. The Boston Red Sox curse. You probably know about that one. So the FBI collected his cigarette butts. They also collected a hair off of his headrest. There's one lone, I believe, brown male hair off of his headrest. Right? They clean those headrests every day. They put a fresh one on there. Right. So there was only one found on there. So unless someone, and Cooper wasn't sitting in first class, back then there wasn't you could just go into first class if you want. There wasn't any anything like that. So most people sat up towards the front. Sitting in the very way back last seat wasn't too desirable. So unless someone else happened to have sat on that very seat that day, they're more likely than not that was DB Cooper's hair they got. So they collected that, they collected the butts, And then the only other thing that was left on was the tie. So the tie, they were able to keep a hold of that. Okay. That's still in evidence. Last we know, it's in Washington. It's at Quantico, Washington D.C. at the FBI Museum Experience, back not on display, but back behind lock and key. Mm-hmm. Now the cigarette butts they sent to the Las Vegas lab in Reno, because that's where the plane ended up. He said he wanted to go to Mexico, but the plane couldn't get that far under the way he wanted to fly it. With all that drag, the stairs down, all of that. So they had to decide on a place to refuel. They ended up deciding on Reno, and then so Reno lab got it. They were, I guess, since it's their jurisdiction, they were in charge with testing in the lab and everything. Basically, the instructions for the cigarette butts were basically just to look for fingerprints. So I'm assuming they took out the dusting kit and dusted the cigs for prints. They couldn't get any. And in the memo to the lab in Nevada, it said you can check for prints, and then if you want, you can check for prints and you can if there's nothing on it, you can destroy afterwards, right? Really? Now keep in mind, this is not. Now today it sounds like crazy, right? I mean, still it's still a big no-no. You do not get rid of evidence,
Exactly. Crime scene evidence.
So to their defense, it was 1971. DNA, wasn't in the mines, like it was even like 10 years later or even a few years later.
That's true.
Yeah. This is in 71. DNA still wasn't really a thing. I got to remember, it wasn't a murder, so it wasn't like Zodiac or one of these other ones where people were actually killed and stuff like that. Yeah. I know they kept like didn't they keep like the pants from Sherry Joe Bates? Yep. They did a good job of preserving that. Chiropractic in the bag and everything. But since this wasn't like a murder scene, right? They're just like, well, yeah, basically decide, let's just see if we can get prints off this. If not, this is just garbage to us, right?
Right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, makes sense. DNA technology did not advance.
Yeah, so that was kind of their attitude. But the Nevada lab still, I guess, were apprehensive about it because they didn't end up destroying it. They sent it back to Seattle, and then I guess Seattle ended up destroying it. Since they didn't, because no one's ever seen it in the evidence or anything like that. That's the end of the paper trail for that. Okay. Now the hair slide, since that was put in an actual glass type of slide thing with adhesive.
It's preserved, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me they still have that.
we think they do still have it, but it's lost.
Mislabeled.
So it's misplaced, so nobody knows where it is. We think it might be lost in one of the it got stuck in one of the 1A envelopes, and it's lost somewhere in some filing cabinet, either in Seattle, Vegas.
Jeez.
LA, I thought I heard.
It got moved around a bit because they were using that hair slide to compare suspects' hair to. So if they had they had a suspect in LA, so they sent it over there.
Right, okay, yeah, they ship it over.
Yeah, so it got moved around a little bit. So maybe it got lost in transit somewhere. It got stuck at one of the field offices and just ended up buried somewhere. I think it's still, because since the way it was packaged, how it was, I think it's still around somewhere in some envelope in some cabinet. But it might as well be. It might be toast at this point, But,
exactly.
But Ryan Burns, actually, who's he's an attorney out of Mississippi. He's another guy in the Cooper research community. He's actually filed a Freedom of Information Act, and for them to look for the hair slide, and the FBI has responded back that they will look for it. We just don't know when or anything like that, but. They're supposed to be going to be doing some kind of a look for it, and then once that search is concluded, they'll report back to Ryan Burns, and we'll have an answer. So as of right now, that's just kind of one of the pending things we got going on in this case.
Very interesting. I was thinking too while you were talking about because we were saying like it seemed so well planned and that he really knew what he was doing. It was just I'm just thinking out loud now, but when you were saying that he couldn't go to Mexico where he wanted to because they didn't, because the way that he wanted them to fly and the drag and all of that, it depleted the fuel. Now that makes me wonder, did he know as much as I think he knew? Because you think that if he knew all of this, he would have taken that into account. I'm just thinking out loud.
No. Now you're in the you're thinking like a Cooper sleuth, right? You're in the vortex. This is what makes this case so fascinating, because there'll be one piece of information that will make him seem like he's got this well planned, like you said, he knows what he's doing. But then there'll be another piece of information, like what you just said, that makes you think, well, maybe he didn't. Right. And then same thing with the parachutes. Like he didn't bring
that was weird too.
Right. Most we don't think he was a skydiver, anyone that was into parachutes, because those guys would have brought their own parachutes. McCoy 6 months later brought his own parachute rig. It was very easy back then. Got to remember, 1971, it was like getting on a bus. You didn't have to show
metal
ID.
detectors. Yeah,
metal
none
detectors.
of that stuff.
You didn't have to show ID. You can say your name is whatever. You could bring whatever on. No one's checking your stuff.
Pay cash.
So it would have been so easy.
Yeah, it was a different time back then.
It would have been so easy just to bring your own rig that your own rig that you trust, you're comfortable with. But Cooper not only did he not bring his own rig, he didn't specify what kind of rigs he wanted.
Which is crazy.
And he didn't even use parachute terminology. He just said, I want front chutes and I want back chutes.
Yep.
That's it.
Didn't he pick the worst one? If I remember, there was a couple different types of parachutes, and he picked the one that was the worst.
There's been a lot of misinformation on that, just because the rigger guy that packed all 4 chutes, he's also a shady character, a jokester. He ended up getting murdered in his home.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But he spread a lot of misinformation. But from the best of our knowledge now, is that the 2 chutes, the 2 back chutes at least, which he used one of them, came from a local pilot, local stunt pilot, and he was required, because he did aerobatics, to keep 2 parachutes in his plane.
Okay.
And Cossey put those chutes together, packed them, and sold it to him. He was contracted to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. But the chutes didn't come from him that night. So he packs and he sells a lot of chutes. So, but basically what I'm getting at is, the chutes came from Hayden. They were pretty much identical chutes, because that's what you would give someone for safety purposes, right? You're not going to give someone 2 totally different chutes.
Yeah.
Especially
and let them figure it out on the way down.
Exactly. That's not the good time.
Right. Yeah. So, and Hayden himself said, the chutes were identical, or he wasn't a parachute expert, but they're identical or pretty damn close to each other. Cooper took just the newer chute. I think one was like 4 or 5 years older than the other. One was like mid 60s, and the other one was like 70s. Early 70s. I want to say. So he took the newer chute. The other chute that he rejected actually had an overstuffed canopy, so it was a container meant for a 24-foot parachute, and there was a 26-foot parachute put in there. So it looked a little bit overstuffed. It looked a little bit janky, and also the backpack didn't have the cover on it. It was tan. It usually has like a sage green cover on it, or a different kind of cover. That chute was completely missing its cover on there. So it looked a little bit, from research and talking to people, it looked a little bit more just not as well kept. And then with the overstuffing of the canopy in there, you want it, like most of them, like if you see like MB6 or MB8, one of those old, if you feel the top of it, it's like it's flat. You don't see it like kind of sticking out in places and kind of looking kind of lumpy, which is the other one did. So I think just from the eye test, like I said, he didn't seem to be too into parachute equipment, and
he just took the one that looked the best.
He just took the one that was newer and looked the best.
But why did he want so many parachutes? Well, like, this is something I've always wondered. Why did he request so many parachutes? Just to throw them off? Or?
Well, yeah. So
for sure to throw them off.
So yeah,
that's really weird. Like, why not one? Or
Well,
sure.
well.
So this is why people think that Cooper, was smart and he did have this planned out, because by requesting more than one parachute, it's kind of guaranteeing that they're not going to fuck with it, right? Because then they think you might be taken a hostage, right?
Right.
Then
if it's going to take crew members, down the jump.
So then if they give the plane bad parachutes and the crew have to use the parachutes, well,
it's on the FBI for the insurance.
Then you're in a whole world of hurt. So this was a way of Cooper kind of guaranteeing, since he wasn't specifying the kind of gear or bringing his own gear, this was Cooper's way for at least guaranteeing he was going to get parachutes that worked. And I think at the end of the day, that's all he cared about. He just, as long as I got a parachute that worked, I'm good.
Full ripcord.
Right.
Oh, sorry about the.
Oh, that's okay. No worry about it. No, I just no worries at all. This is really fascinating. Like I said, I'm really like when I dive into these cases, and especially this one, it just saying.
Trust me, man. Nikki and Ryan know this case. Like, I know there's the big names out there, like Eric and Bruce, and we could definitely drop some of the Skyjack. Like one thing that's a lot of the people, the kind of normies who end up coming to the Vortex from History Channel or Netflix or wherever, the kind of more mainstream documentaries, like Nikki was saying, is they say, oh, well, why can't they test this? Why can't they test that? Like Nikki was just saying with Tom K, trust me, everything has been tested. When did Jeff write Skyjack, Nikki? Was that 2002 when it came out or something around that?
I want to say that was before my time, but I want to say, I want to say like like pre 2010, something like that.
Yeah, so this was kind of the first big one, Rick, and already in that, there was already like an in-depth deep dive of Tom K and those guys throwing bundles. So at one point, the wash-up theory was really popular. Like, oh, I know what happened. Cooper landed wherever in one of the tributaries and the money just washed up into the Columbia. So they took bundles and threw them into the water to test that theory. And it only floated, Nikki, for what, like 10 minutes or something, 15 minutes before it waterlogged it. You know what I mean? So that kind of discounted that right away. Then, like Nikki said, then they scanned the money with the high-res scope. Then they scanned his tie with the high-res. So it's like a lot of the people who are like, why can't we just test this? Why can't we just test that? Quite literally everything has been testing. I know Eric sued the FBI to try to get custody or at least minor testing control of the tie to there's basically a spindle in the top, which Cooper would have been theorized to have touched with his fingers. So the theory there is if they could open the spindle, if it's been closed this whole time, then maybe they could get a DNA test, or Tom or whoever could try to scan that and just see if there is so I know there's been like a lot of new developments. One thing, Nikki, didn't they have a magazine Cooper was reading, and then I thought they also pulled the chair he was sitting in, although I can't really remember the fit. Didn't they pull the whole row out? I'm sure Nikki would know more.
So when they did the sled test to reenact to see to try to determine if that pressure bump was when Cooper jumped. When they did that sled test, they needed room back there to for the sled and for all that stuff. So they removed that back row of seats. I think both back rows of seats, they removed them for the sled test, but then they put him back on. But when the plane got touched down in Reno, they fingerprinted his chair. They fingerprinted the glasses.
The glass,
Yeah, they had the glass he drank, but it got mixed in with everyone else's.
They were actually plastic cups, not
the plastic cup.
Yeah, but they fingerprinted pretty much anything that they think they could pull prints off of. But what's interesting is they got partial prints like off everything, which kind of indicates that Cooper somehow Cooper had something on his fingers to kind of to kind of alter his fingerprints,
right. That's interesting. I mean, Zodiac claimed he did that.
Airplane glue.
That's exactly what Zodiac said he did. Zodiac said he used model plane cement.
I've heard of people doing that. Yeah, putting that model cement on their fingertips.
If they both did that, both of the biggest cold cases from the 70s ever, I would crap my pants because I don't know, maybe that was just a thing back then, or that's just crazy. I mean,
or maybe sandpaper. Like, I wonder if they would could sand them off.
There's different things you could do so you don't give off a full fingerprint. And since all of the prints they pulled were all partials, that kind of tells me, that he did something. I mean, because there was like over 30 prints pulled, and they're all partials. It's just kind of
that's crazy.
Able to pull an actual real.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what's really interesting, guys. Is that, I mean, it's not easy to not leave your DNA behind, and the fact that they don't have more is what's always shocked me about this case. Like, I mean, maybe now if this whole case, say this happened now, and then they have the way they can test now, and they can bring in those, these crews to go through all of the whole plane and all. I'm sure we'd be in a different story right now. But, like you said, we were back in the 70s. But it's just fascinating that there wasn't more. Like, he really, like, that's what I mean. I bounced between he really knew what he was doing, and he had this pegged perfect. And then there's little things that make me think he was just lucky.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think he kind of, was like, I'm going to plan enough to, and of course, Nikki has been looking at this way longer than me, but it's like, I'm going to get me through start to finish and get me out the back of the aft stairs with the ripcord. And then, some things, obviously you have to adapt. Like, for instance, I'm sure Nikki will get to when he requests the money, he wants a knapsack. They bring it to him in open-ended bank bags,
and he got upset about that, right?
Yes. So he ends up taking out his pocket knife and cutting up. Was it one of the chutes, Nikki, or he cuts up something and then reties it over the bag to reseal it. So in other words, like, complaining and losing his cool and doing like what the average like hijacker psychopath would do, ranting, raving on the phone back to the authorities. He just like is like, all right, whatever, I'm going to fix it. And he could say, no, I have the bomb here, I'm going to blow up the crew, or come back with the knapsacks. He doesn't even bother with the resistance. Like, he's obviously flustered, but it doesn't completely derail him.
He just makes his own. Yeah, it does.
Right. That adaptation is crazy.
I mean, he spent a lot of time on rigging that up, and that's why a lot of people point to, well, that's ridiculous. Why? He could have just, I have the bomb, give me the knapsack.
Yep.
Instead of messing around trying to rig this whole thing up.
Rig.
But what I'd say to that is, he was a person that obviously was comfortable improvising. Mm-hmm. And if you really, the context is important here. By that time, the plane had already been on the ground longer than he wanted because the fuel trucking, right? So
the refill,
So they had to bring 3 fuel trucks in. First one, they said there's some kind of vapor lock. Second one, same thing, right? It got to the point that the pilots are calling the pilot, Bill Radachek, is calling Northwest Orient saying, cussing him out. He says, I never say a bad word, but that day I said a bad word because he knew that the skyjacker knew that this shouldn't be going on. Like, he knew that the fueling should have already been done.
Right.
The FBI might be stalling to possibly take a shot at Cooper, and in which case the pilot's like, dude, the crew is on board. He says he has a bomb. That's gambling with everyone's life.
Exactly.
Let's go.
He said he wanted to know funny stuff, and then things started getting funny with the fuel trucks.
Exactly.
So that the pilot was already sensing this, so he was telling Northwest Orient, please just get the plane filled up. You guys are going to freaking kill me here. Right. Get this thing filled up.
Yeah, exactly.
But at that, that's already going on, and Cooper's already kind of suspicious, already kind of on edge at this point. Florence Schaffner alludes to this in her Unsolved Mysteries interview. So I think Cooper knew the longer he stayed on the ground, the more time someone can actually get to him. Once he's in the air, he's in the clear.
100%.
But once if he's still on the ground, and FBI, they can still cook something up. Yeah. FBI agent can try something. The FBI really wanted to do something. When they heard he was in the laboratory, they wanted to go underneath there and start shooting. But Donald Nyrup was a cheap. The owner of Northwest Orient was a very cheap guy, and he's like, "No, you are not putting any holes in my airplane. I want my airplane making me money tomorrow. You're not doing this."
Yeah. I've heard Schaefer talk about that, and definitely check out the DB Cooper Vortex podcast, Rick, if you haven't, and your listeners as well. But let's just talk about how cavalier the FBI, they really did have this kind of cowboy reputation at the time, and ultimately, I think Nikki and I both mentioned McCoy. I mean, he actually dies in a shootout with FBI agents when he goes on the run at the end of his life. But let's just talk about that. An actual plan was, why can't we just go out of the plane and start shooting at him through the floor of the lavatory? Like, nowadays, I don't think that's really something that would come up too early on in the planning of how are we going to handle this thing. Like, and never mind, there's however many people on board, Nikki. It just doesn't sound like a
shooting.
good plan.
We might get him.
I was aware of the danger of being on the ground. That's why he didn't have the plane land until they had his stuff ready. He made him He made him circle Puget Sound until his stuff was ready, right? So obviously
that makes sense because that's his most vulnerable on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
he's got to get off the ground as quick as possible before they start shooting through the plane or something.
Right. So the whole knapsack thing, I think it was just a matter of that. Maybe he thought it was, they're messing with him just like with the fueling. Then they could give him a knapsack with possibly a tracker in it, or possibly one with they loosen some of the seams up or something, and it's gonna burst out. He's like I'm gonna take matters in my own hands here. I'm gonna I can secure the money myself. I can do it. Let's get the show on the road. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he reinforces it. And just real quick, Ricky, we got to go to the break now.
Yeah, we got like 2 minutes, and then we got a little break, and then we'll be back right till 8 o'clock. So when Nikki
says pressure bump, that whole thing is, that's supposed to be the indication of Cooper's jump, because when he leaps off those aft stairs, they kind of snap back in the wind and they bump against the plane.
Right.
And the pilots and the crew kind of feel that bump, and that's supposed to give us the indication of where he lands in the drop zone, although, the Vortex has been arguing
he could just jump up and down and make you think.
So people have brought up that, and that's something you could address, Nikki, after the break.
Yeah, after the break, I want to get into that.
That's why there's so much conjecture about the drop zone, the landing zone, you know what I mean? It sounds like these arbitrary things, but Nikki and these guys have had over 20 years of debate on these subjects, and, let's keep it real. The FBI, investigation didn't really lead anywhere. So That's why it's still all open-ended questions, like Nikki's saying,
Well, the fact that we're still talking about it this, so many years later shows you that, how, I don't know. Like I said, this is fascinating. And
these guys have an annual crime con every year.
Exactly.
With primaries. We have Bill Mitchell, who's the guy who sat across from him in the rows. He was there last year. I think he was there this year. They had Larry Carr this year, who was the FBI agent that took over the case in later years. They've had, the biggest names you can get at that event, So.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I've seen videos too where people dress up and everything. Like you got people that dress up and they're carrying parachutes around and bags of money and
Cooper cosplay, baby.
Exactly. So it's definitely it's still really, people really think about this case, and it's just fascinating. So thank you guys. This has been a great first hour. Please guys, stick around. We will be back with my guest for hour 2, of course. And we're going to be getting into more of the DB Cooper. We're going to probably get into some Zodiac. Who knows where it's going to go, guys? We're going to be talking about great stuff. So stick around, guys. We'll be back right after this break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Industrial Complex podcast here on Revolution Radio, Studio B, every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Get fit, empowered, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
In interrupt your normally scheduled programming to bring you this important broadcasting announcement. Now is the time to explore your greatest potential, embracing truth, health, and wellness while discarding the system and exposing its corruption. Experience true freedom every Saturday night between 6 and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live from Studio B, it's the Jonathan Wright Show. Find it right here at revolution.radio.
I am Bill Johnson. Some consider my efforts to be an underground law school. I am not an attorney, and I do not give legal advice. I teach. That's lawful and legal. Consider yourself served. You are to appear Friday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern, Studio A. My forte? Foreclosure and contract law. Grab your legal pad and pen. Learn a broad spectrum of law, spanning administrative, criminal, family, tort, and federal law. Fools and losers cling to old cases. I dissect and comment on the latest rulings that control the courts. Don't be a loser. And if you don't appear, you will be held in contempt.
I will defend myself against their tyranny. Number 3 is my radio broadcast. I'm squarely in front of the public all the time, and they all know what's going on.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
Hello, my name is John Wayne, and I do a broadcast here at freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, called The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
Freedom and fear are at war.
And folks, I assure you, we are in Defense Condition 1. As we journey perilously through this paradigm that we currently reside in, and I ask that you join me every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
We'll never surrender.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus-O deltoid type, placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremi pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, taking the confusion out of transmutated lunar girdle springs for 4 years and running. Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported alternative media radio on the planet. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back, everybody. We are already in hour 2. Great conversation. I'm really, really enjoying this and fascinated by it. And this case, just as I was saying in the first hour, is fascinating. And when you really start really diving into it, you realize very quickly that you're kind of going all over the place. And then one question leads to another question and then another question, which happens in a lot of these cases. And I think that's why people really, dive into these cases. And there's a few, like I was saying before, that I've told you guys that I'm really interested in. This is one of them, the Cooper one, definitely Son of Sam, and Zodiac for sure. These are the cases that have really honed in on that, the big scale cases. And then obviously the David Crowley case. So yeah, really great stuff. I just want to welcome my guests back for hour 2. We got Nikki and we got Ross here, and we are having to talk about, we're talking Cooper, and who knows where it's going to go, guys. So where do you want to, where did you want to kick off, Ross, from Cooper here in the second hour?
This would probably be a good place for Nikki. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find her research? So Nikki's
Absolutely.
an expert in the DB Cooper mystery group on Facebook. So if you guys care to follow the case, these guys, it's just an awesome place to be. Nikki, Ryan, Eric, all the big guys in the case, they real time discuss and debate. And, if you want to see a case, kind of crowdsourced right before your eyes, that's definitely where you got to be. But wherever
so
else
I will
they can
share a
find
link
yourself.
for sure. Yeah, I'll share a link so you can check out Nikki's work and all the work they're doing. Perfect. Okay. Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, we got a website, norjack.org, norjak.org.
Yorjack? Sorry, you broke up a bit.
Norjack.org.
Norjack.
Norjak.
Okay. .org.
Yep.
And
you can find a lot of great case resources there. You can find all the research on my suspect, Milton Bernard Vordahl, on there. Just a great overall research for the case. And then if you're on Facebook, you can see a lot of my stuff just on the DB Cooper research group, which I am admin of.
Okay, perfect. I'll leave links for that, guys, in the chat room, so you can please go check out Nikki's the sites that I'm going to be posting here for you. Check out all the work he's doing. And like they were saying, you guys were both saying at the first hour, you guys have really got a lot of years behind this case, looking into it and discussions, and it's fascinating. I keep saying that because it truly is. And I find myself just coming back to this case and really just how it got done. I mean, it's just what shocks me about it, and I was saying it earlier, it's just how cool and calm this guy was. Like, I mean, it's just, I think that speaks volumes that this guy was so
100%.
just chill.
So one thing I've heard people say is like, just some people, some of the criticism, and I'm sure Nikki's heard more of it than me. It's like, oh, I don't get why DB Cooper is like blown up like that. Why are people so into it? Well, it's if I'm not mistaken, Nikki, it's the number one unsolved or the only unsolved skyjacking in U.S. history. All the other ones were,
huge.
Either the guys, died in some, FBI cowboy McCoy thing getting blown away, or just other kind of crazy things, or they just got caught when they hit the ground. And some really good, interesting research into that is what Ryan Burns has been doing on the copycats. He did a presentation on the copycats at CooperCon this year, which I missed, which drove me insane, Nikki, because obviously I got to meet Nikki and the boys last year. But I sent this panel to you, Rick. I want everyone to go check out the panel on Nikki's YouTube and subscribe there, where him and Ryan unveiled Milton. God, what do we call that? It's like DB Cooper new suspect panel. I think the title is something like that.
Yeah, so you can also link my YouTube page, which has that video, as well as a bunch of the new presentations from CooperCon this year. There's you can actually find never before heard audio between Flight 305 and Seattle ATC. Yeah, I got a couple clips from the tapes that no one's actually ever heard before.
That's cool.
Yep, and then you can find some other presentations. You can find a presentation that pilot Bill Radachak did with the Northwest Orient kind of history museum or whatever they have there in Minneapolis. He did like an over hour-long presentation there. You can also see that on my YouTube channel. It's Finding DB Cooper.
Okay, perfect. So, I'm just asking Ross if you could send me some links, or even you, Nikki, in the chat here. I will put them in the Rev Radio chat so people can.
Yeah, Ross, if you can link my YouTube channel.
Yep, just send them to me, Ross, there, and I can get them out to people, because I really hope people really take the time to go and really look into this case, because as you guys were just saying, that this is unsolved. It's the only one of its kind, and I think that also speaks volumes. And
so many interesting layers. There's almost as many suspects as Zodiac, some good, some bad. And Nikki has an amazing history of sleuthing out some of that stuff. So since you brought up the suspect, Nikki,
that's what I was just going to ask you. Like, who do they think did this? They must have some theories, or.
Oh, like I said, some good, some bad, but Nikki unveiled his own. So I just want to know, Nikki, I know you were on the suspect panel this year, and I've just, as I said, I'm super upset with myself that I didn't see that. So I'm just wondering, have you cooled on Milton, or how's your Milton investigation going? And maybe maybe break down some of whatever you got, what you found initially, and where you're at now.
No cooling on over here. In my eyes, he's the best. He's the best candidate that's out there, that's known. There's a lot of ranging suspects here. The FBI investigated over 1,000 suspects. You got people that you got family members of of someone that told them that they were Cooper, or a deathbed confession.
Yep.
Or they vary. They're wide. The suspect pool is pretty much endless in the Vortex.
Just to give Ricky an idea of how endless, Rick, did you watch the HBO documentary, and have you heard of the Barb Dayton suspect?
Yes, that's. I'm trying to remember. I've watched so much, guys.
So she was the first, trans operation. What was it in Washington State history at the time? So she was formerly a man that became a woman, and then the theory was, I think this is a friend of Bruce who wrote this first book about this, and it might sound ridiculous to people, but it's actually one thing I like that Ryan and I forgot who he did that with when they did the suspect roulette, where they actually had to defend each suspect, even ones that I'm like, whatever on this suspect, because you really start to see how some of these people can check the boxes. Now, I'm not saying any of them or all of them are DB Cooper, but you really start to see some of these people check the boxes. So hers was that she redressed up for a man again during the skyjacking, and then was actually having, was living as a woman. So that was why they couldn't find DB. That's just one example of showing you how expansive the Vortex is. You literally have women suspects, which is insane. I really haven't heard that with Zodiac. But anyway, Nikki, back to Milton.
Yeah, that's a good example that kind of explains it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. I think it's way wider net than most people would assume. That's what I was getting at with that comment.
For sure.
For anyone who emailed us. But Nikki, go into what you found at the on the panel, and just like give them some background on Milton. So ultimately, I'll try to cue it up for Nikki without sounding like a buffoon, which is difficult in this case. Tom K finds titanium alimony particles on the tie, which leads them to aerospace industry and all metallurgy is something Nikki's done an excellent job of looking into, things that I'm not well versed in being a Zodiac guy. And it leads them to this company called Rem Crew Titanium, which was used to be associated with Crucible Steel. And then so they started looking at the science team, and Nikki was able to, have an amazing search. I just remember when Nikki sent me the photograph you guys finally obtained, and I'm not sure which sketch that is that you guys have it side by side with in the panel, Nikki, but like that is freaking astounding, bro. Like the profile, the silhouette. The silhouette is practically a perfect match. Now, again, I'm no, composite sketch genius, but that was just my take on it.
Yeah, I do remember that where they found that titanium on the tie, and then I remember learning all about and it got way into depth, more than I can understand. They were breaking it down, but I love Nikki to kind of dive into that because I think this is really important.
So Nikki found scientists on that research team. Eric came up with one suspect that was essentially on that research team, and then Nikki and Ryan found their own. And then so just go into that, Nikki.
That's awesome.
This stuff is incredible.
Yeah, sure. So just to give a little backstory. So in 2000, I want to say around 2012, 13, Tom K actually got access to all the FBI evidence, right? So this is kind of where things kind of started picking up in the case, where Larry Carr, so he took over this case, I believe, like in 2010 or something like that. And Larry Carr was a bank robbery specialist for the FBI. So he was used to catching bank robbers. And the way they catch bank robbers is they go to the public, they give them all the information in hopes that someone brings the suspect back to them. So Larry
FBI top 10 and all that. So
so Larry tried to use the same kind of technique, just kind of with the internet, instead of like putting it out in newspapers or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So he went on the internet and found this active forum on the Drop Zone about DB Cooper, where it was started by Joe Weber, who got a deathbed confession from her husband that he was Dan Cooper, and she started this thread as well as a crusade to try to figure out if he was Cooper. But the main thing she did was she started this thread where chatter started happening, different people started popping in, talking about the case. Larry jumped online and he saw this was going on, so he came up with a screen name called Secret, CRKET, he was trying to be clever. Didn't say he was an FBI agent, but he kind of just started sharing information on the forum, it was quickly kind of realized that he was FBI. I think like after the first or second post, they're like, "Are you FBI?" Like,
he just had way too much insight. He did a great job of, kind of leaking it, as Nikki said, but it was like nobody really comes up with anything that detailed unless they know.
Right
it's a little quick.
That inside information, and everyone's like, "Wait a minute here,"
Yeah, that's a lot of information for a message board poster.
Yes, this kind of started the whole thing. And someone was asking, have you looked at the money? Has anyone done any scientific analysis on the money to see if we determine any more information? So Larry Carr was like, no, and someone asked, well, would you be willing to? And he's like, yeah. So then one of the forum members, who's pretty well connected, he started going around to different scientists, different researchers he knew that might be willing to, help us out on this little research project. Everybody said no except one guy by the name of Tom K. And he ended up kind of being our guy. So he initially started doing the research on the money, and then Larry Carr gave him access to all the evidence. So he opened, except for all of the personal files and stuff like that, that were in the filing cabinets, but he got access to all the evidence, which was the tie, the parachute, some of the money that was recovered on Tina Barr.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So when he got access, he actually took sticky stubs with him and he applied them to the tie. Right.
Smart.
He kept these stubs around, and then eventually he got to doing a show for Travel Channel, and they actually funded for him to have Macron's laboratory use their electron microscope, which is top of the line, state of the art. This is one of the top research labs in the world. They were trusted with the Shroud of Turin. So they were able to fund this and have them scan his stubs under their automated electron microscope, and it read out amazingly over 100,000 particles. Tom K published this Excel spreadsheet of all the particles on his website. It's citizensleuth.com. It's still up there for anyone that's interested and wants to check it out.
For sure.
And Tom K did a preliminary analysis. He looked at a few things, but we're talking over 100,000 particles here. So he kind of just put it up online. It's just like, yeah, you guys have at it. If you guys can, figure out anything interesting, let us know. And that's kind of what happened maybe around almost 2 years ago when another Cooper investigator, Eric Eulis, was looking through the Excel data sheet, and he noticed 3 titanium particles that had an unusually high amount of antimony in them. And he started looking at anything patents that might correlate with this, and he found a patent from the 50s that led back to his company called Remcrew. So that kind of got us down that rabbit hole. Before that, I was already kind of looking into specialty metals companies. I was talking to a metallurgist who was also looking at this data on the website, and he was telling me, specialty metals R&D is where you need to look here. That looks like what we're seeing from these various just kind of unusual type of particle here. The sheer amount of titanium particles, just all the evidence seemed to point that this tie was in a titanium. Or just a specialty metals research and development type of environment. So we were already kind of looking at those companies, and then when Eric made that find, it just kind of focused our search even more, and we were able to find a later patent. In the beginning, we were having trouble because the patents that we found were in the 50s for this alloy. So we were having trouble figuring out how it got on a tie that was manufactured and didn't hit store floors until 1964. So the tie has a lifespan as well, which is it wasn't manufactured and put on the floor till 64, and then it had a short run. It was probably out of stores by 66 or so. So it was a very short run. Yeah. So we were kind of stumped on how, it wasn't correlating with the timeline of the tie, but we still kept researching, and then we ended up finding a later patent for 1965, which aligns perfectly with when the tie was around. Same type of mixture of the titanium with the 18%, high 17% antimony. And there was one sole inventor on this patent. His name was Milton Bernard Vordahl. And just looking into him and his life, I thought it was just going to be another one of these metallurgy geeks that, I check off the list for one reason or another. Too tall, too short, blue eyes, no connection to the Pacific Northwest. You name it. There's so many silver bullets, anyone can get. And, he kind of just started checking off every kind of parameter we're looking for. And then the last thing we got was a picture of him from 1965 on his passport. And like Ross kind of alluded to here, the resemblance is striking.
Yeah, and so that's just take that into account, Rick, just the process of these guys sleuthing. They were looking up patents, and then, this guy has all this research and development essays and, documentation. So they're going through all that stuff. And mind you, they're doing it all without the visual of what the guy even looks like. That was essentially the last thing they found, So that just kind of shows you how kind of difficult some of these, suspect investigations actually are. Yeah. It's not just, no one's going to just hand you a picture of your guy from the mid 60s. Well, we're all done. Let's all go home. It's actually way more in depth than that. But these rare earth metals they're talking about, there was also what was it, industrial salt, Nikki. So it kind of showed you that and then the tie, Eric tracked that to a J.C. Penney model tie. So they were literally actually able to go back and put all these things together, Rick, which is pretty interesting the way these guys try to put together the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. Know
Absolutely.
What I mean?
Yeah,
so
and the amount of hours that people put into these cases is something that I have mad respect for. Like, this is, like, you think of the amount of hours that even you guys have put in, and all of these people that put into trying to really bring this case to people. You guys are getting paid by the hour to do this. This is a passion.
So like Nikki said, like Tom Kay, he's a paleontologist, like Jurassic Park, Rick, and and also an inventor. So that guy's quite literally a genius. He's just helping Nikki and the Vortex and the citizen sleuths. It's all, like you said, it's all kind of a freelance type of thing. Yep. But like Nikki said, it kind of all goes back to the spark of Larry Carr being that FBI agent who took over the case in latest years. And it's super interesting to me that he comes from a heist background, you know what I mean? Because,
exactly.
Those kind of heists are that kind of heist crime is very interesting in itself. But then you have Dan Cooper, the sky heist, if you will, which has all these additional layers to it. Bank robbers are driving it, loading up the truck and driving away in a getaway car. And that's interesting enough. But now you're talking about some guy strapping the money to him that may or may not have any jumping experience, like Nikki was saying, and then jumping out into that nighttime jump in the Pacific Northwest. If he was landing in Los Angeles or Miami, you know what I mean? I'd be like, okay, well, he's not going to deal with weather when he hits the ground, but he does it from, Portland to Seattle.
That's what I think about too. Yeah. Like, when you think that he's jumping at night and where he's leaving when you start with, that's what I keep saying, when you dive into it, you start to realize how difficult this was. And the fact that they never found a body, they never, and I know that people argue about where he landed. I mean, nobody can even really agree because nobody really knows where he landed, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's a general area. But so I was going to bring that up, Nikki. So he has a 72-hour start before, law enforcement goes public or whatever. But when they have that, or whatever it was, Nikki, I don't know if I got that right, but when they have that search, wasn't it 300 men on the ground? I'm sure Nikki knows expansively, but it's I think it's over 300 men on the ground with Army, military personnel, and all. So it's a highly expansive search, It's not.
Oh, yes. The search was extensive. Military personnel, National Guard. They looked through that area. They found, I believe, 2 dead bodies.
Missing women, missing persons cases.
I know one of the guys found a shoe. They found articles of clothing. They found bodies. They found stuff. Just
nothing case related. Well, and I want to segue off that to build off that because, like Nick said, this character Cossie, and then the big FBI thing. The hard FBI narrative for a long time was he for sure was a no pull. He for sure hit the ground at, 1,000 miles an hour and just splattered into a puddle. But like, Nikki and the entire Vortex and, many other myself, people would say it's like, okay, then something more would have came up than that weird Tina bar money. Like, and even Rick said that right at the beginning. Like, I would expect if it's just a pile of bones or a skeleton in a tree stuck on the chute, like, or just a chute, something like that, But the fact that you have nothing, and then another big point that's been brought up on the Vortex podcast and by Eric and others is like 200K cash. They wrote down the serial numbers, and the money really never hits it never really hits the market. Like with all those serial numbers of bills we have, nobody ever traces it. So we didn't really bring that up either.
That's a great point, Russ. Thank you. That's another bills, weird. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, okay. Where's the money? Like what? Okay.
Circulation. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's not really circulation.
Circulation, because you don't need to find him or find the 200K in his attic, unless he's quite literally never spent a dollar of it or burned it all. I mean,
comment quick on the money. What's interesting is there was over 300 of the Cooper ransom, which are called star notes.
Yes.
Star notes
just came out, Rick.
Star notes are very sought after by collectors, right? So let's just say you had.
I don't even know what that is. What is a star note?
So basically, what a star note is when they make a mistake on the serial number or they make an error on the bill, they reprint it with a star. Then it becomes a star note, and then that becomes more collectible. So you could have a 1960s star note that's worth a $20 star note that's actually worth $100 or maybe $150, $120, something like that.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so 300 of the Cooper ransom was star notes, and not one of them has turned up in circulation. There's a website that you can actually just type it in, and if it's a Cooper bill, it'll pop up.
Yep.
So the fact that not even one of the star notes has showed up in circulation, it's pretty indicating that probably the money never entered circulation. So
how's that one, Rick? Never gets spent.
I'm sitting here thinking right now, and I'm thinking, well, then it would lead me to believe that he didn't survive the jump. But then why is there nothing else found?
But missing 200K, like Nikki said, like I'd have to, maybe they don't find all of it. Like a lot of people like to say, like, he lived, but he lost the money in the jump, right? And my problem with that is, like, I think we would have found something more than 5,800 on Tina Bar, even if it was just fragments of dollars, like Nikki was saying, or some sort of debris from the bag. I don't know. Again, hey, I'm a total amateur in this case, but
me too.
When you to kind of piggyback off Ross is saying, like when you look at the landing area, right? Like either if it's where you think the FBI thought he landed, which is where he probably would have had more problems, right? Because where the FBI thought he landed was, by the Ariel Amboy area, which was all wooded, right? It had a bunch of wooded areas, bunch of big trees. The terrain's more, kind of rugged and forested. But once you get past La Center, Washington, a little bit closer to Vancouver, whereas I believe DB Cooper jumped, just because the area over Ariel would still been pitch black. I don't think Cooper jumps into pitch black nothingness and where you can't see.
Exactly.
Once you start getting up on that Vancouver, Portland, up to that, you start seeing the confluence, the glow of the lights from both Vancouver and Portland.
That's a good point, Nikki. Good point.
Yeah, I think
the Merwin Dam, Nikki. A lot of people think like that the lights from the dam could be like a visual.
That played up in the old Leonard Nimoy In Search of documentary. After the research, we kind of learned that was just kind of played up for the documentary.
Didn't really hold up. Gotcha.
Said it was beamed with a series of brilliant lights. He made it seem like it was lit up like a freaking like a
Christmas tree.
Home or like a Christmas tree. But when you look at it and you look at photos and you talk to locals, we've talked to a guy that flew his private plane in that area all the time from the 60s to even today. And, you ask him, he's like, you can't see anything from Mars. And you look at pictures, there's a few little spotlights, but there is nothing you'd be able to see through broken cloud cover at 10,000 feet. So it's kind of been dispelled. Like I said, I don't think he would have seen anything until he gets kind of to about the battleground Orchards area, which would have been right on the outskirts of Vancouver there. Mm-hmm. And once he saw those lights, I think that would have been go time for him. But what's important is that area. Once you get out of the Oriole, once you get past the center, that whole area is all just farmland. It's all it's all open. It's one of the areas there is called Orchards because it's all just open farmland. So there's no big trees. There's also not very much for anything to hide. If anything falls out on Moneybag fell out on there. His ashtray case fell out on there. Whatever else he had with him fell out on there. Someone probably would have stumbled across it, and
sure.
And
there's sorry, Rick, not to cut you off, but there's a major hunting ground there, Nikki, where hunting is pretty popular, and things have been come up. The placard and the fiberglass. God, what do you call that thing?
Here's the thing about the Pacific Northwest. People hunt. They go scavenging for mushrooms. They're outside even if the weather's bad and damp.
They're outdoorsmen.
The rain doesn't slow them down. I mean, these guys are in November hunting with their sandals on and shorts. I mean, they don't.
It's part of the culture up there. Outdoors is
Yeah. So. These people are outside. They're inhabiting the area. They're out there. They're walking around. They're doing stuff. So, the fact that nothing would have been found, the FBI area, was searched, extensively. Nothing was found there. Then the alternate drop zone area a little bit further south. Anything that lands in there would have stuck out like a sore thumb. So that's where I'm just like, If you didn't like I said, if you want to say he no-pulled, maybe like if you want to say he pulled a chute, but that's a big parachute that's out there, right? That someone's going to
exactly.
See. Yeah, and you're dumping that as soon as you land because you're worried about dragging the money. You know what I mean? Right. So you're not going to hey, let me drag this chute around.
Yeah, honestly, it sounds scary, like the Pacific Northwest, the weather, and the area, at nighttime and all this. But at the end of the day, if you pull your parachute's going to do what it's designed to do. Mm-hmm. Martin Andrade, another Cooper researcher, in his book has World War II bailout stats, right? These guys that they just bailed out with, not even Cooper had a backpack. These guys just had like a belly pack, a 24 foot parachute. They'd never had any training or anything like that. They're jumping out of planes, not even prepared for it, that they're on fire.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And like 99.5% of these guys all survived, right? In bad conditions. The gear they had back then was heavy, right? A lot of them in worse conditions than Cooper, not even expecting to jump with even worse equipment. Right. And all of them survived pretty much.
And that's live combat he's talking about, Rick, which is a war zone, which is a flaming, plane that you're ejecting out of an emergency situation, possibly being shot out on the way down with possibly enemy troops on the way down, and still 99.9. You know what I mean? So Cooper
huge,
actually has an easy day, but compared to that.
And it makes sense what Nicky's saying. Like I could see that's the problem I always had with the forest. If he did, why pull there? Because then you have to survive that. And then you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So then you have to, if you're going to cover your tracks, you got to carry all this stuff out. So it just makes total sense, like what Nicky is breaking down. And that's what I would do. I would pull where it's flat. There's not many things to hit. You're close to civilization. So, it just makes more sense.
Actually, where Cooper, if he landed where we think a little bit more southern of the DZ, I mean, it really is the perfect spot. There was actually an airport and a skydive center. They skydived in Orchards there.
Nice. That's interesting.
So it's like I said, it's all flat. As long as Cooper gets under canopy, there's a he's living. Like I said, the parachutes do what they're supposed to do. He gets under canopy in that area. I think he's totally fine.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Especially if he pulled off the stairs, which is one way he could have done. He could have actually just pulled right off the stairs, and you don't even have to have any free fall experience or anything like that. Yeah. That's the way they did it in the tests during Vietnam over in over in damn, I forgot the city, I forgot the area in Thailand, but they took one of the 727 combis that Southern Air Transport had, and they did a drop test with it just to kind of show that you could use it in this way. And basically they dropped cargo out of it first, and then they dropped men out of it off a static line. Basically, a static line just pulls your parachute right away.
You just jump out, and away you go. Yeah, there's no real skill that you need.
So and they filmed it for the Southern Air Transport for this Air America kind of promotional video. It's called Flying Men's Flying Machines. You can see it. You can look it up on YouTube, and you can see the cargo, and you can see the guys exiting the 727 and off the static line, which basically pulls their chute right away. You can see him. It's very gentle. Basically, what happens is the parachute just goes out in the air forward, and it kind of it does like a squid. They call it kind of squidding. So basically, it kind of squids out, and it looks like a squid, and it takes you right off the stairs. In this one they took the stairs off, but if you pulled right off the stairs, it'd be the same thing. It takes you off very gently. Yeah. It's not a harsh opening. So that would have been the way. That would have been the way anybody really could have done it. I mean, you just pull off the stairs. Oh, yeah. So if you're in area kind of over, kind of flatlands, farmlands, that's really it. You just got to be able to just pull the ripcord, And Cooper was rigging up this money bag. He was cutting shroud lines off. He was tying knots. So his hand-eye coordination seemed pretty good. So
exactly.
If you want to tell me that he couldn't pull the ripcord. That's
what I find interesting, Nikki, too, and I have a friend that's listening into this conversation and sent me the question that maybe because we were talking about how none of the money's really into circulation and stuff, and his thoughts are maybe it was never about the money, which is interesting. 100%. Like maybe the money means nothing to Cooper. It was never about that. Maybe it was, and I'm thinking, building on what my friend just said to me in the message, is that maybe he was trying to show something like, okay, this is a vulnerability in flight or something. I mean, there's a message he was trying to prove.
Here's the thing. I think Cooper was a smart guy. He was a bright guy.
I agree.
Okay. So here's the thing. Cooper probably thought that he would. I think Cooper initially thought that there'd be a chance that his money wouldn't get recorded, right? So this was actually, Cooper ran into a very unusual circumstance here that was only specific to this banking organization, which was Seattle First, right? So Seattle First actually had an incident not too long before Norjack. I don't know the exact dates right now, but it wasn't too long, maybe within a year or so before Norjack. Probably in that same year, where one of their bank employees actually got taken. They didn't rob the bank. They actually took one of the employees for ransom.
Okay.
And they demanded money from the bank. So after that, what Seafirst Bank decided to do was to have a ransom fund already, serial numbers recorded, set aside, put away in case this incident happened again. Right?
Yep.
Now, some can speculate, I don't know how Cooper would, unless Cooper has some kind of insiders with the bank or something like that, it's very unlikely that he knew about this, right? I think he planned it out. He knew that Seattle, was Seafirst Bank was one of the biggest banks in the nation at that point. They carried a hell of a lot of money in their vaults. So he knew that the money wouldn't be too hard.
They would have something, even if he didn't know exact amounts.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because remember, this is the day before. This is late in the day, before Thanksgiving, right? Yep. So most at that hour, for him to be expecting a bank to have that kind of money ready to go, he's got to be picking somewhere that has, if he picked a small, if he picked Portland, or if he said, if he said, oh, let's just stay in Portland, that'd be quicker to get my stuff. It would have taken a lot longer for him to get that money because there wasn't a bank in Portland that was carrying that kind of money.
Small banks. Yep.
Little small banks, So he happened to pick a place that had a bank with a big vault of money. right?
Right.
Gave him he gave him a time limit. I want it all by 5 o'clock. So
exactly.
He gave him 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So without knowing about that this ransom fund was put away, he was probably thinking, I'll give him 2 hours, short time period. I got a bomb. They're just going to grab this money and give it to me. They're not going to have time to mess around and record the serial numbers. That's going to take too long.
Mm-hmm.
But then and then I'm thinking, okay, then the money never hits circulation. So as you said just a few minutes ago, Nikki, maybe he got insider information that it was marked, or so. I just.
So no, it wasn't insider. Well, so the day after it was announced in the newspapers that the serial numbers are recorded. They're sending out.
Okay.
So it was publicized, Rick, after the fact. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that. I was wondering that too. Wow. Okay.
But the point Nicky's getting at.
Yeah. So the next day, Cooper would have known the money's hot. The money's recorded.
Mm-hmm.
But he was thinking that originally he can get money that wouldn't be
they probably wouldn't have time to
been
track
recorded.
it.
Okay,
but,
I see.
The other point Nicky's making is like people have postulated that like it's possible that he would have known that the bank would have had those emergency funds, so he would have known the exact amount to ask for. It's like, it seems unlikely, you know what I mean? But that's what the Vortex is. It's just never-ending layers.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. My friend just sent another message, and he's like, maybe and I never thought of this, but maybe because if the weather was that cold, maybe he had to burn some of the money to stay warm.
It was just another typical Pacific Northwest day. I think it was.
Yeah. At least he's thinking, though. I'll give him that.
Yeah. It's all, trust me, as I told you, Rick, these guys have deconstructed every theory, but it's like 40, 45 on the ground, Nikki, around that. So
yeah, somewhere like that. Yeah, exactly.
So, and there is wood around there and that, right? So I think I'd be trying to burn leaves and stuff before I'm burning my money.
Before my money, without a doubt, or my clothes. You know what I mean? I think the money would go last for me. But this is why Cooper's the man.
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, hold on. I was about to make.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was I just talking about? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The ransom money at the bank, and how they announced that they tracked the serial numbers that they recorded.
Right, okay, yeah. So the point I was going to make was whether it was about the money or not. I think DB Cooper was smart enough that once he realized that money was tracked, that money's hot,
100%. Yep.
that was it for him. He wasn't gonna risk it. Except it would have been too risky being like, all right, if it wasn't really about the money to begin with, it would have been. I think it made it because I don't think that was his main motivation. I do agree with the commenter on that point. Mm-hmm. Since it wasn't his main motivation, it made it easy for him to just be like, okay, the serial numbers are recorded, not worth my freedom.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, at that point, you got away with the crime, like Nicky said. I mean, you might not be able to spend the money,
but whatever. It was more. It was more kind of the act itself.
Right. It's the defiance of
cherry on top, possible.
For sure. Yeah. It's like okay, you can't spend your money, but like Nicky said, you also didn't get the however long the jail sentence is going to be for that skyjacking. You know what I mean? So it's like, what? I don't spend my money, but I'm free forever. Or what did McNally get, Nick? Was it was 30, 20 years, 30 something?
35 years. Yeah, McNally was a copycat. He was at CooperCon a few weeks ago. He spoke about his skyjacking. Probably the craziest skyjacking of them all, I'll say. I mean, He had a drunk guy at the bar while he was waiting for his money, freaking crash into his plane, screw that one up. He had to get a second plane.
Wow.
He never touched a parachute before in his life. Went into a crazy spin. Got knocked unconscious. Got a ride back from a police officer to a motel. Right. He asked him a couple of questions that he was like trick questions that he was still able to answer. Right. Like Marty was, he had he's a criminal mind. Like
that's a show on itself. Just what you said.
Oh yeah. There's a whole bunch about it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Rick, if you're interested, you can check out his podcast. It's called American Skyjacker. It's a 10-part series. One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. Even if you don't even if you don't care for the content that much, just, the production and the narration, everything is just top tier level. So American Skyjacker, check that out. He's also got a movie that's getting ready to come out, also titled American Skyjacker. Even after skyjacking, he escapes from jail, kind of like McCoy did. Goes on with the crime partner. Just crazy story. The guy lived a crazy life. Got to meet him at CooperCon. Really good dude. Served his time.
Yeah, he was there this year too. So that was the point I was getting at. Like Nikki was saying, it's like, okay, I got away with the act. And they just told me that my serial numbers is tracked. So do I risk spending a couple 20s if they throw 30, 40 years at me? you know what I mean? It's like, it's a pretty easy decision to make.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. But what a blunder to put that out there that is tracked.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That could go both ways. So I have a question about it being about the money, Nikki, about, the act of, going against the system, right? He does mention, Rick, that she asked him if he had a grudge with the airline. Is that what the line was, Nikki? And he says, no, I just have a grudge. So he does mention that he had a grudge, right? So we don't know if that's like corporate or governmental. It could be, interpreted different ways. But I can't remember if I asked Nick this when I interviewed him on my series, the Cooper Chronicles. You can go check that out at youtube.com/Planet X Filmwork and see my interview with Nick there.
I'll put the link out there for you again, Ross. I did it at the beginning, but I will put it out again.
Since we brought this up, boys, and I'll get your opinion, Rick, too, since you're the host. We'll weigh in with you after Nick. The leaving of the tie, Nikki. You've heard all the theories on this, right? It's either like he forgets it because he's securing the money and doing the mission, or people have said like taking off the tie, a symbol of de-chaining the working man. I just want to get your take on it, Nick, because you know the case extremely well.
Yeah, dude. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. It could have been an oversight. He was, like I said, he was gearing, he's rigging up his money bag and all that. Yep. It was dark, he had all the lights in the cabins turned off. It was dark. Yep. It's dark, it's just kind of a natural reflex to kind of take your tie and just kind of throw it down on something.
Dark seat, dark tie.
So it just could have been that. And then, when it came to jump time, the tie was back there, and he's like, fuck it. It was just a generic black clip, dirty tie. Sure. With a generic mother of pearl cheap tie clasp clip on it. It's super generic. So there's nothing good,
self-identifying
stuff like stuff that had his head, the notes with his handwriting on it.
I was just going to say, because he remembered everything else. That's the only reason why I differentiated.
That's the problem I have. That's the problem I have.
I was going to ask you, Rick. Yeah.
You don't do what this guy pulled off and forget anything. That's my opinion. Now maybe.
Yeah. That's why I think it's cool. So many Nikki knows the case really well. He's 50-50. I kind of lean towards Rick direction, but it's just an interesting question because everyone from people who have just found out about it to, case veterans like Nick.
It all depends. Yeah, I think it all depends on how Cooper viewed the tie. Did he view it as some piece of, it could be some kind of piece of evidence? If he did, then I agree with you, Rick. If he didn't view it that way, then I can see why he left it behind. So there's a case to be made, and there's and I can also see the side of being it kind of a symbolism, right? Because your tie off it's a symbol as nobody owns you anymore. You don't work if you have a tie on. You're working for the man. You're working for somebody.
End of your career, retirement or whatever. You know what I mean? Freedom.
Yeah, right. And if this part of it was, not just for the money, but to make a statement, then then maybe that is kind of also part of the way he was making his statement. What's interesting about Vordahl is his last patent is the day before the skyjacking. He never has another patent published after that.
That's super interesting. Yeah,
that is very interesting. Yeah. Wow.
I really like Nikki's suspect, and this is one of the newer suspects in my eyes. I would definitely say. Head on over to norjack.org and, get read up on Milton. Of course, check out the panel on Nikki's YouTube. Did you release anything new, or was the suspect panel just kind of a back and forth, Nikki, when you're up at CooperCon this year?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people on the panel. Everyone just kind of shared, just kind of answered some questions regarding their suspect and, their investigation.
Just a round robin.
Yeah, just kind of round robin, everyone chiming in,
That's cool stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely hope I could go to one of those one year. Because I think I'd just be so fascinated to meet a lot of people.
I know Eric he kind of talked about doing some satellite cities, Nick, and he had Boston, where I'm originally from, on there. So I don't know if he's still planning on that, but if he is, Rick, that'd probably be a shorter trip for you than coming out to the Pacific Northwest.
I believe he is. That's going to be, I think, just that's going to be not anything Cooper. It's just going to be strictly Boston related crimes. I think he's going to highlight the Gardner heist, and then
okay, I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, it's all going to be kind of regional related crimes, I think, from what he told me.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a whole lot in Boston, man. It's a grimy place. I was telling Rick about how when me and Nikki met up for a pre-meeting before Nick's interview, and we just I was impressed at how much Nick knew about the Gardner. We were just we're supposed to be doing our Cooper pre-search, and we were just went off on a tangent, you know what I mean? Because that one's crazy, man. It's $100 million value, and just the fact that nothing's ever been found there with that. That's a
real $100 million reward for the Gardner.
Yep. For the Gardner. And it's still open to this day. I mean, it's the
wow.
90s.
Okay.
So definitely check out that documentary out on Rick if you haven't. The one about that. What is I forget what it's called. The biggest heist ever, or something like that.
Where's that? Is that Netflix or Hulu?
Yeah, it's Netflix.
Okay,
yep.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, definitely.
That's a cool one.
Send me down another rabbit hole, guys. Thanks.
That's what you get with these Vortex guys, man. I was so into Zodiac, and then I got stuck with Drew on the Paratrooper of Fortune with Ted Braden, and that's what led me to Nicky, and he was doing a little bit of Cherry Joe. So I don't know. I didn't really check your schedule, Nick. So you tied up, or you good to go?
What's that?
I didn't know if you had anything else going on, or I mean, the show's pretty much over now, but you were clear for these blocks, right?
Yeah, huh? Yep. So we're just,
did you want to do a little Zodiac, Rick? Or actually, hold on, I know how to segue this.
Yeah, how do we segue the Zodiac in 9 minutes?
I'm going to give you the perfect one. Because you requested
that. A little Zodiac, and I'll just kind of hang in the background and chime in if I come up with that.
I do have a couple for you though, Nicky. He had some questions about the case breakers, and Nicky has his own loving nickname for them because he did some stuff with that. He collaborated with them back in the day. So Rick had some questions for me on Gary Francis' post, but a la that, I kind of wanted to alley-oop the Rackstraw stuff to you, Nick, because you're the Rackstraw expert. So yeah, are you familiar with the case breakers, Rick, or you kind of only know them through the announcements of Rackstraw and Gary Francis' post?
Yeah, I just know through the announcements. So you guys take it away. We got 6 minutes. Oh, let me check.
Yeah,
the
this
time.
Won't take long.
Let's break it down. Well, what a great way to.
They are self-described as a team of 30 to 40 former FBI and genius law enforcement experts. I mean, Nicky could do a much better job of deconstructing Rackstraw because he actually knew him in person. And it's kind of weird because, what we were saying about the suspects before. On paper, if you don't know the case, Rackstraw probably looks pretty good to you. Vietnam veteran, CIA shadow mission experience, blah, 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 blah. But the only problem is Rackstraw is 27 in 1971, right, Nick? So he's almost 20 years younger than Cooper's description. So him right off the bat kind of falls apart. If you could just summarize that, Nicky.
Yeah, and not just the age, but the personality. The guy was a huge flirt, huge ladies man.
Chauvinist, and he didn't fit Cooper's mannerisms.
Yeah, Cooper was very polite, respectful. If that was Rackstraw on that plane, we had a former Miss Arkansas on there. Tina was, beautiful girl. He definitely would have been making comments,
at the stews.
He would have been trying to pick up on him. So that's the personality aside, just from the age and the color eyes and
that's interesting.
So
Rackstraw was buff, he was a big guy. Bill Mitchell sat right next to him and said the FBI asked him, they were like, you think you could have taken it? Bill said, I would have never tried it, but Bill's a pretty big guy. I think he's 6'1" or something like that.
He's a tall. How old was he? He was a tall college athlete. I think he played. So he was not afraid of Cooper.
Yeah, he was a sophomore at University of Oregon. Looked like he could football. Dude was big. And he's if I really wanted to, he's I felt like I could have yanked him out of his chair, and I could have manhandled him.
No doubt.
That would have made the story really awesome for a movie. So it's just nothing fit. Good.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say real quick. He's even said on CooperCon, he's like, some of these guys that people have proposed as suspects, like Braden and Rackstraw, and all these all these military guys. He's like,
ops killer.
He's like, I don't think I would have thought I could take those guys. Like, all these guys that you're putting up here seem scary. Like, I wouldn't, that wasn't the vibe I got from Cooper. The vibe he got.
Right. Yeah. He didn't feel like he was some Vietnam veteran or. Yeah. So,
that's fast. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. Well, definitely. Well, that's a good segue because then maybe I would love to get you both back maybe in the new year. Next month, and we can continue this because we didn't even get into any other cases. We just really. I'm so. Thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us, and especially you, Ross, for getting Nikki involved and setting it up. Because
I just wanted to put you on. Fascinating. Nikki's, one of my best Cooper experts.
We did a 2-hour show just on Cooper.
real quick. So the guy that brought Rackstraw forward, Rick, is Thomas Colbert, right? He writes this book called The Master Outlaw, and he goes around and proclaims Rackstraw as D.B. Cooper to everyone. In the documentary, his own guys that worked on his team start to say, hey, halfway through, we started not to think that Colbert had this. We started not to think that Cooper was Rackstraw. And then he kind of just goes down with his own ship, even though his own staff kind of starts to disagree with him. They also brought forward, we had some discussion of this issue, what you wanted me to address, Rick, they later on bring forward Gary Francis Post as the Zodiac killer. I'll make it very brief for you. They post a composite sketch of Zodiac, and then they highlight wrinkles on Gary Francis' forehead as these are they're actually age lines on the Zodiac composite sketch, but hey, these are they said they were scars. This is the scarring on Zodiac's forehead. Now, mind you, scarring on Zodiac's forehead has never been mentioned in the 50 years of the case.
I've never heard that,
Until this moment when they announced Gary Francis Post, they declare that he's the Zodiac. Fox News picks it up, I think, Newsmax or one of the, I don't know all their names, but the Fox News spider webs, they all post Zodiac solved. It's Gary Francis Post. There's quite literally no evidence, literally nothing linking Gary Francis Post to the case. Not handwriting, DNA, fingerprints, none of the analysis you expect, no physical evidence whatsoever. So it's not Gary Francis Post. And then they give us the amazing cherry on top that, hey, we know where all Zodiac's guns are. They're buried in the Sierra Nevada mountains. But we're all in our 50s on this research team, and none of us could hike up there. So that's what the case breakers brought to Zodiac. Nikki sent me some stuff on their apparent Zodiac documentary, and then apparently they've also solved Jimmy Hoffa, which is the latest one. So that's the case breakers, folks. It's, they certainly have an answer for Cooper, Zodiac, and Hoffa, just not ones that I answered. That anyone actually agrees with.
Yeah, you nailed that, Ross. Thank you. You really brought that was quick, man, but hey, you got it all in and it was to the point and awesome. And thank you. I want to thank you once again so much, both of you, for joining me tonight. This was really interesting. I love these cases. I love diving into them. And you gave me so much to really think about again on this Cooper case.
Yeah, this is East Coast Canada, right, Rick? Quebec. Are you guys in the Quebec area? Just to let Nicky know where he's.
I'm in Ontario.
Okay, you're in Ontario. So
yeah.
I thought I noticed a little bit of accent. One of the reasons why, there's also kind of thing. D.B. Cooper was from Canada, kind of a misinterpretation of something he might have said.
Canadian
And the Dan Cooper comic, which was about a Canadian fighter pilot that his name was Dan Cooper. They thought that might have inspired his name. So there's some Canadian actually connections in the Cooper case. But one of the main reasons why I don't believe Cooper was Canadian, because pretty much right away I kind of picked up on your Canadian.
Yeah, no discernible accent on Cooper.
No discernible accent on Cooper. But yeah, Rick, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a lot of fun talking. And yeah, if you ever want to have me back on again, I'm game.
Definitely
show,
love
Nicky.
That.
Appreciate
thank
you.
Right, guys, I appreciate you both.
Have a good night, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys, for joining me. As I said, thank you, everyone, for once again joining in and listening. I hope you.
Nikki B, folks.
Absolutely. I got links, guys. You guys got links, tons of them in the chat room. Please go check out these gentlemen's websites and YouTube channels. I will see you next week, guys. Take care.
Great show, y'all.
listening to Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
I am Bill Johnson. Some consider my efforts to be an underground law school. I am not an attorney, and I do not give legal advice. I teach. That's lawful and legal. Consider yourself served. You are to appear Friday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern, Studio A. My forte? Foreclosure and contract law. Grab your legal pad and pen. Learn a broad spectrum of law, spanning administrative, criminal, family, tort, and federal law. Fools and losers cling to old cases. I dissect and comment on the latest rulings that control the courts. Don't be a loser. And if you don't appear, you will be held in contempt.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all